Hello everyone, my name is Patrick Frawley and I'm your product specialist for tractors. Today you join us here at our CLAAS UK headquarters in Saxham, and in this video we are going to have a look at how we can correctly set and make some of the settings on our CIS Plus machine for rear linkage. So you now join me back up in the cab of our CIS Plus machine, looking firstly at our corner display in the A pillar. So what can we see in relation to our linkage settings? Well, firstly, we have this little icon or display over to the right-hand side in the bottom right-hand corner. And there's a couple of different annotations that we can look at in terms of the state of the linkage. Firstly, we want to be able to tell the height of the linkage, and we can see this by two different ways. We have obviously a numerical value showing that we're at 100% travel at the moment. And secondly, by the blue bar. So if this was down at 50%, we would see the blue bar would only be halfway up this dial. Secondly, we can then also tell that the linkage is locked at the moment by the little padlock symbol on our link arm symbol here on the right hand side of the display. If we were moving in and out of work, we would see that we would have an up or a down arrow in replace for the padlock symbol, depending on how we're activating our linkage. And lastly then, for those in and out of work values, we can see two different annotations in relation to those values. Firstly, we have this little white arrow. The white arrow annotates our in-work position, or our minimum or working depth, I should say. At the moment, you can see it's white. If I was to activate my working depth button on the armrest, you would see the actual arrow would display green, showing us that that function is now active. At the top end of travel, my maximum height is annotated by the black dash here. So as I increase or decrease my maximum height, you can see that that black dash increases or decreases. Similarly, with my depth wheel on my armrest, which I'll show you in a minute, by moving that upwards and downwards, we can see that the white arrow moves up and down the link arm travel. So, looking at the armrest and the buttons that we can see in relation to our linkage controls. Well, firstly, you can remember that we talked about our in and out of work function. This is shown here by the buttons that we have on the fore and the aft of the armrest. We can see that we have an upwards arrow annotating our out of work function, and we have a downwards arrow annotating our in work function. So that will cycle between our depth wheel position that we can see over on the right hand side of the armrest, and we can cycle that upwards and downwards depending on the depth that we actually require from the link arms on the back end of the machine, or the maximum height wheel that we can see on the top left hand of our B pillar at the back end of the machine. So by turning this left and right, or counterclockwise and clockwise, this adjusts our maximum height as we press that out of work button on our armrest. We can also see then we have two further dials on this machine. The bottom left hand dial is going to be our lift and raise speed, so further around clockwise that we go, the faster it will lift and lower, and the further anti-clockwise we go, the slower it will lift and lower. So obviously the heavier the implement that we may have, the further lower the number that we may want to go. And lastly, for draft control, we have this dial on the bottom right hand corner. So by turning it anti-clockwise as we have now, this essentially turns our draft control off, and by turning it clockwise and we go up the numerical values, that increases the sensitivity and the functionality of our draft control. If we had it spec'd on the machine, we would also see an additional wheel slip control dial here as well. So rather than using draft control, it would then sense the amount of wheel slip that we are gaining with the machine for different cultivation jobs, and once we hit a minimum value, it would then start to adjust our linkage position. So, thank you for watching everyone. Please feel free to check out some of the other videos in relation to your own machine, and for any further information, don't hesitate to contact your local dealer.